All right, I'm going to call the St. Croix County Administration Committee meeting. See, I'm discombobulated. Committee meeting to order. Could I get a roll call, please?
Chair Burning.
Present.
Vice Chair Counter.
Present.
Supervisor Fiedler.
Present.
Supervisor Shirley.
Present.
Supervisor Long is excused. We have a quorum.
Thank you. We are looking at the minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? Calling for any changes or amendments to the minutes. Any changes or amendments to the minutes? Hearing none, I call the minutes approved from last meeting. Public comment. Is there any public comment?
Mr. Chairman, could I make a quick comment on the minutes?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I love the way you handle the minutes. I belong to several organizations, and I was commenting to somebody the other day. It took us 5 minutes and endless parliamentary procedure to get through a unanimous vote on approving the minutes. I said, you know, at the Administration Committee of St. Croix County, we handle it in a proper way with felicity and properness, and anybody can speak, but we're done in 30 seconds. So I want to compliment the chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Fiedler. And going back now to public comment, is there any public comment? Any public comment? Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close that portion of the agenda and we'll move on to our business items. Business item number 1, financial report for September 24. Administrator Witt.
Yeah, the financial report is in your packet. So looking at tax collections for the year, both vehicle registration fee and sales tax. You can see the change in vehicle registration fee at the beginning of the year with collections increasing, and then sales tax. It's been up and down. It's averaging about average, though, of where we were last year. At this point, down just slightly from where we were, but fairly close. And then the next 2 pages are a look at our KIP projects. You can see a lot of the KIP projects now are closing out as we're getting close to the end of the year. And on the following page, with our ARPA projects, you can see most of those are now closed out, as this has been 3 years worth of projects, and we're getting close to closing probably all but one of them by the end of this year. If there's any other questions that are on the financial pack, I'd be happy to entertain those.
Are there any questions for the administrator on the finance report? Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll close that portion of the agenda. Thank you. Number 2, resolution adopting 2025 budget and establishing tax levy. Administrator Witt, would you take it?
Yeah, so this resolution is the formal process to establish the tax levy and also adopting the 2025 budget. The version of the budget in the packet is what was recommended at the committee of the whole level. The only change being, I think on page 286 of the budget, is the increase of $1.5 million in the KIP project for Eckerd Blufflands, using fund balance to cover that project in 2025. That's the only change that we made to the budget. This establishes the tax levy then, and this is required in order to generate tax bills, so we don't want to disappoint our public.
Is there any supervisor that would like to make a motion?
I'll move we adopt the resolution adopting the 2025 budget and establishing a tax levy.
We have a motion to approve or adopt the 2025 budget and establish the tax levy. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Shirley. Any discussion? Is there any discussion? Supervisor Counter signaled first. Supervisor Counter, you're recognized.
This is hard, but as the one concern that I see coming forward that I would have spoke up probably 2 meetings ago, but I do still feel concerned that I want to at least put out publicly that I still believe that in my own mind that I have disappointment that we are have elected to completely, not completely, but to limit our support of the university extension program, and that's as far as I'm going to go with it. I see them as an asset for us for the future, that they are not just here as a what programs that they operate, but we rely on them more or less similar to an insurance. So if we have things that come up and we're put into a position where things that we don't even know about today that just all of a sudden they're there, when we are in support with their programming and how it works, we have the total university system assets at our disposal to help us with situations that we can get very, very quick responses for the most part. I know we had issues with a few of the things that went on, but looking forward, by cutting all this out, I see that as a detriment for us for the future. I just wanted to make that public.
Thank you, Supervisor Counter. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Supervisor Shirley.
Just a quick question. We have our list of general county obligations, debt service. Is the bond referendum for the sheriff in the operations line item, or where is that?
The, what line are you looking for then?
So the bond referendum for the sheriff's office that we had, is that mixed into one of these numbers?
So you're talking about
Wouldn't that be a part of this breakdown?
yeah, so the referendum, the $896,000 referendum? Okay, that is in the first line, the general county operations line. It is included in that line. Yep, the 34,105,000, it's in that. Yep.
Is there any further discussion on this resolution? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is unanimous, 4-0. Number 3, resolution amending 2024 budget for ARPA funding for disproportionately affected populations. Who would like to take this one? Supervisor Fiedler?
I'll take it, and I'll make a motion to the effect that you just stated, that we now consider that resolution.
We have a motion to amend 2024 budget for ARPA funding for disproportionately affected populations. Is there a second? There's a second by Supervisor Counter. We are in discussion. Any discussion on this? Supervisor Fiedler.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your consideration of this amendment, putting it on the agenda. We've seen this issue before. We considered it at the full board a year ago in November, and it was kind of mixed up in the discussion of CASA funding, and it did not get a majority of the vote at that time. It came very close, but just failed. And I thought about it and talked to people about it, and I think there was a little misunderstanding at the time as to what the purpose was, what the impact on CASA would be. And I know the chairman has a great interest in the CASA budget as well. And I know since then, so we expended a very large amount of money, $300,000 on CASA. And I'm a strong supporter of CASA, as was the board. But that was a lot, and I didn't think we needed quite that much for it. Well, time has shown that CASA has worked hard. Their director and their board have worked very hard to get other monies, and they're doing very well. They've gotten monies that have come in and have helped them to a great deal, and that's great. But I think some of our colleagues may have misunderstood that we were using, we'd be using ARPA funds, which are not tax levy funds, for that, and they voted no. About a month ago at this committee, we voted a somewhat similar amendment out of this committee, and although it got a majority vote at the board, it did not get this required state requirement of 2/3 vote, although at various times we've had more than that number of supervisors have supported the amendment. So I'd like to just review really quickly what we're doing and then suggest a way forward that might be amenable to a majority of this committee. First of all, the language that's being proposed in this amendment is not the same language that was proposed before. This gives the administrator the authority to use ARPA funding up to $100,000 for disproportionately affected populations as determined by the county administrator. So he has full authority to, within the guidelines of the ARPA regulations, to allocate the money. I think on the obvious language is used, disproportionately affected populations. it would definitely go to the most needy in the county. We have a lot of needy people in the county. We have a lot of them. We have an underpopulation of literally thousands that need some kind of assistance, and many of them are getting it through the state, county, or federal government now. But there are those who fall through the cracks, and usually it comes down to housing. And I just want to say again, we're talking about ARPA money. It's money that we already have. We received $17,600,000 plus in ARPA money. This would expend less than 0.5% of that money. We have much more than that left over. So this is a minuscule amount of what we have left over, and it's a minuscule amount of what we were granted in the first place. But it goes to the most needy people in the county. So it's not a tax levy, and indeed it will probably save the taxpayers of St. Croix County money by passing this, because if we don't pass it and help these people, they're going to go into the social service system. I'm not going to call on Bob Rohrt, he's our HHS director, to talk about what they do now for people, but I know what he would say if he were here is he'd say, if you're not helping them, if those nonprofits aren't helping them, we would be doing it. It would be an expense for my staff, expense for the county, and we are very much the beneficiaries, and they now indeed contract with some of these entities already, and we expend money with them. We have a track record with them, and it's a good track record, and we continue to expend monies and extend those contracts because they are helping the people of St. Croix County. Again, it is not tax levy money. This costs the taxpayer nothing, and I know some of our colleagues were kind of unsure about where this money came from and whether it would be a tax expense. It is not. I mentioned housing assistance. Primarily it's on rental assistance, but it goes beyond that. The people that are affected are seniors, they're vets, they're those with mental disorders, there's those who've suffered great physical or mental abuse by a partner, and others. Our major nonprofits in the county are maxed out. There's no money that's coming in the future pipeline that I can tell from the federal government or the state government beyond what's happening now. So these people have money for their operational expenses and nothing more, but the population is growing that needs them, particularly among seniors. Again, if we don't expend this money, that's basically free money for us to expend on people, and frankly, almost to say, otherwise it goes into the HVAC system. But if you might say, well, if we don't put in HVAC, it'll cost the people money. Well, it's a stretch maybe, but maybe it would. But we've got so much money in the KIP. We've got millions and millions of dollars in the KIP, and that's where we would expend this from otherwise. That money's already been tax levied. It's there. It's sitting there. We have a huge surplus in it, and we can easily cover any expenses. In fact, I believe probably we will have more money left over than we even expend on that. We'll have to see how we go ahead on that over the couple months to come. But we must expend this money this year or we lose it. Nobody wants to lose it. So we're going to have to make some interesting and good decisions, I think, over the next couple months on this. I'll leave it at that, but I was just going to suggest that rather than force people to take a vote that is maybe difficult, that we try to do this, since we know that a majority of our colleagues have supported this, most recently about 3 weeks ago, that rather than take a position on the resolution, that we simply vote it out without recommendation to the full board and let them work their will. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Fiedler. Are there any other comments? Supervisor Shirley, go ahead.
I guess I'd like to ask the administrator, if this was passed through, how would you handle, how would you move forward with this?
Yeah, I've been working on Q3 reporting, so I was going to give you an update on where we're at. So the HVAC project, I've allocated an additional $148,000 to the HVAC project. Looking at Q4, I'm anticipating I'll have about $200,000 available left over from the other projects at that point. So it's going to come from there. So at the end of the day, we'll have allocated right around $1 million to the HVAC, or 1.1 million. Those are the two scenarios. So how I would handle it is I'd probably work with the Health and Human Services Director to identify organizations that we already have a partnership with, because I'm going to have like 60 days to get the contract signed and get the checks dispersed. So it's a very short window to do so. So I'd be looking at agencies that we already have a relationship with.
Is there any further discussion on this? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Oh.
This would be on the vote to vote it out without recommendation.
That was your motion. Yes. Do you want me to restate it?
No, you're fine. I just want to clarify.
Okay, so I'll call for the vote again. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. No. It is 2-2. It does die in committee. So we'll go on to number 4, consideration of 2025 bonding plan for capital projects. Administrator Witt.
Yeah, as we continue to work towards the Highway Department project for replacing their satellite shop here in Hudson on Highway 12, we're starting to work through some of the details of a debt issuance. So I wanted to go over that with you so that when we bring that initial bonding resolution forward to you, it's meeting your requirements. So a debt issuance requires a 3/4 vote of all members. So remember that the supermajority vote is tough to get, so we want to make sure that it's meeting what you guys want. And once you've approved that initial bonding resolution, it's actually good for 5 years after that date, that you can sell the bonds then after that. So if the project was delayed for any reason, that's fine. There's a built-in delay for that. So it only takes a majority vote after the initial resolution to actually sell the debt issuance. I should also clarify too, bonds versus promissory notes. There was a law change on March of 2024 where they changed just a couple of things within the state law. So probably there won't be any more municipal bonds issued. It'll probably be all promissory notes. Both of them can be competitively bid. So a bond is, anybody can buy a bond. So anyone can buy that bond, whereas a promissory note is a financial institution. And so the main change that is shifting it then is the promissory notes used to only be good for 10 years. Now they'll be good for 20 years. And so I'm used to saying bonds, 3 decades of saying bonding. Does that to you. All future ones will probably be promissory notes. We would probably still do a competitive promissory note sale just because our excellent bond rating will get us a really good rate, so we would want to be competitive. But you could actually do a private placement. You could just go to whatever bank you want and say, how much would you lend me the money for? Sign a deal with them without it ever competitively bidding it. There's no requirement for that. But we would probably competitively bid to get the best interest rate. So the type of issuance will probably be promissory note. Now, as far as this debt issuance specifically, we would be looking at establishing the value of it. So $7.5 million was my recommendation, and that will cover just the highway shop. That's the only project that'll be included in there. Although when you see it written, it'll say Hudson Highway Shop or any other authorized KIP projects. That's because if I came in, so if I borrow the money at $7.5 million and the project only spends 7.3, I can't just keep the extra 200,000. I have to spend it on an eligible project. So we use that in there just as a catch-all. The second thing then would be, I think, important for us is we want to blend those debt payments in with our existing debt schedule. That's going to have the biggest impact for the taxpayer. And so as we look at those debt schedules, actually I'll flip to the next page so you can see that. So as we look at these debt schedules, this column, second from the right, is the estimated bond being blended in there. We want to make sure that the total payment every year is the same as it is currently. So currently we're at 10.7 million. So we want to make sure that we stay at or below that amount, because then the taxpayers see no increase. It's like your mortgage on your house. You don't want to see an increase on that. You want it to be consistent or declining, which is the way we have our structure currently. So that's important that we do that. And you'll note that 2026 is high, so I would recommend then that as part of our debt payment plan that we note that we plan to fully offset that increase in 2026 with fund balance. So just sort of pre-plan. When I craft the 26 budget, I'm just going to put it right in there that that's going to happen. And then my recommendation for you is to delay the debt issuance as long as we can. I think interest rates will only go down. I don't think they're going to be increasing. I think the chances only for them to decline. So I think we could wait as late as July before we start hitting major expenses on the highway shop project. So that would be my part of my debt issuance plan also. So these are the points that I would recommend for you, but I want to make sure that this is in compliance with what your expectations are. And if you had any other ideas or suggestions, that we can talk those out and get those sorted through ahead of time. Yep, there's no formal motion that's required for it. I mean, you can if you want to. Really, I'm just looking for guidance in order to bring back a resolution next month at the admin committee.
Are there any committee members that would like to weigh in on this plan? Any comments or suggestions? Any comments or suggestions? Yeah, Supervisor Counter.
I just want to thank you, Ken. I think this is a good option, how you got that set up. I like the idea that we're not going to see an influx or an additional cost and then back it off. I like how you've structured it. So thank you for your thought and how you put this together, and agree with what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and on that point, on this plan for debt issuance, you know, this declining structure is not normal in government. This is, you know, what I call a Kenwit special. But it's the way that I've tried to structure debt, and because only two things can come from this. One is that their debt payment decreases and the tax rate goes down. So that's a good thing. And the second thing is you end up with a project that you're able to blend in with no tax increase. And that's a good thing also. Also, the way this is structured, it's front-loaded on the debt payments. So you're paying more principal up front, whereas a lot of times what they try to do is they try to reverse blend. So they'll do small principal payments or no principal payments at all, interest only on the front end, and your total accumulated interest over the life of the debt is higher then. So when you front end it, or at least you do it on an even distribution, your total interest costs are less. So this methodology is a much more conservative financial approach to debt issuance in government than what you typically see. So I just wanted to spell out that this didn't happen by accident. This took 8 years to actually get us to this point.
Supervisor Fiedler?
No, I just concur in what the administrator said, and I think an example of what he said was the nursing home facility where they did the opposite of that and front-loaded everything with interest, not principal, and now we're paying for it. But I would just ask this, I know this is years out into the future, but one of the other big things the board has been briefed on was the anticipated expenditure for a huge bond issue sometime maybe 2 or 3 years out relative to the jail complex. Could the administrator comment on how that will affect our total bond payments if that were enacted under the general description that's been given to us?
Yeah, they'll go up. Yeah, I'm only so good. So, I mean, we can blend small debt issuance. And when I say small, $7.5 million is a small debt issuance. $57 million that we're looking at for the jail project, there's just no way. That would result in an increase in the total debt payments per year. What we look at doing for that, though, is really trying to maintain and look at projecting out the debt mill rate. So what's the cost per debt as the value of the county grows? So that was in our budget packet. You saw it spiked up, but that it was starting to come back down. So that's what we would want to see with a large debt issuance. Yes, the payments are going to go up. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's going to happen. But really, what can we do to keep that mill rate down and continuing to decline?
Any other comments on this plan? Any other comments? Any other comments? All right, seeing none, we'll close that out. Looks good. Nobody's saying otherwise. So last one, request for future agenda items. Are there any requests for future agenda items? Any requests for future agenda items? Any requests for future agenda items? Seeing none, we'll move on to announcements. Anyone got any cool announcements? Anything fun and exciting? No, nothing good? Happy Halloween coming up, I guess, right? Okay, no really cool announcements except for Happy Halloween. So the date of next meeting will be November 19th, 2024, right here in this room. And being that all business is complete, I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.